The aroma of my grandmother's famous roast filled the dining room of her Victorian mansion, but all I could smell was the condescension. My sister Amanda adjusted her Cartier bracelet, shooting another disapproving glance at my simple outfit as she passed the gravy boat. "So, Olivia," she started, her voice dripping with fake concern, "are you still doing that food thing?" 3 years ago, when I left my 6-figure corporate job to start a food truck, my family had treated it like a personal insult. Now, sitting at our traditional Christmas dinner, they still saw me as the embarrassment, the Harvard MBA graduate who chose to sling tacos instead of joining the family investment firm. If they only knew. "The food truck is doing well," I said quietly, cutting into my roast beef. The sterling silver knife had been passed down 4 generations, just like the expectations I'd chosen to ignore. "Well?" Uncle Philip scoffed from the head of the table. "How well can a street vendor do?" "Really, Olivia, your father would be mortified." Dad had passed away 5 years ago, leaving behind a legacy of traditional success, board seats, country club memberships, and rigid expectations for his children. Amanda had followed the plan perfectly, becoming a senior partner at a prestigious law firm. I'd chosen a different path. "I make enough to get by," I said, hiding a smile behind my wine glass. The 82 Bordeaux probably cost more than what they thought I made in a month. "Getting by isn't the Anderson way," Amanda declared. "Do you know I just made partner? The youngest in the firm's history." "Congratulations," I murmured, checking my phone discreetly under the table. Another notification from my CFO. The Tokyo acquisition had closed. 5 more restaurants added to the empire they knew nothing about. "You could still come work for me," Uncle Philip offered, not for the first time. "There's always room at Anderson Capital for family, even after your unfortunate career choices." I thought about the documents in my bag, the Forbes magazine, the acquisition papers, the proof of everything I'd built, while they were busy looking down their noses at my little food truck. But not yet. Timing was everything, in business and in revenge. "How much can you possibly make with a food truck?" My cousin Bradley chimed in. "I mean, what's your annual revenue?" 5 figures. He laughed at his own joke. 5 figures. I fought back a laugh. Last quarter's revenue alone was north of 9 figures. But they didn't need to know that. Not until the perfect moment. Speaking of figures, Amanda set down her fork with precise movements. "We should discuss the family trust. Now that I'm partner, I think it's time to reassess the distribution." And there it was. The real reason for the increased disdain this year. Grandma's eyebrows rose slightly. She might be approaching 90, but she missed nothing. "The trust is set up fairly," Grandma said firmly. "Equal shares for all grandchildren. But some of us are clearly doing more with the opportunity," Amanda pressed. "Some of us are upholding the family name, while others—" She glanced pointedly at me and my off-the-rack dress. I thought about my latest acquisition, a chain of high-end restaurants across 3 continents. The paperwork had closed this morning, adding another billion to the empire I'd built from a single food truck with a unique fusion menu and a dream. "Amanda," Grandma warned, but my sister was on a roll. "No, this needs to be said. Dad left us a legacy. And what did you do with your portion of the initial inheritance, Olivia? Bought a truck and some cooking equipment? It's embarrassing." That initial inheritance, $250,000 each, had been the catalyst. Amanda had bought a luxury condo. I had invested in my first food truck. East meets West eats, with a menu that combined Asian street food with American classics. The lines had started forming by the second week. "You're right," I said softly. "I did buy a truck." Finally, she admits it. Amanda threw up her hands. A Harvard MBA, serving street food. Do you know what people say? How it reflects on us? I thought about the write-up in last month's Wall Street Journal, carefully hidden from my family. The stealth restaurant queen. They'd called me, detailing how I'd quietly built one of the fastest-growing hospitality groups in the world. And that ridiculous name, Bradley added, East meets West eats. Sounds like a cheap takeout joint. The name that was now trademarked in 47 countries. The brand that had grown from one truck to 300 restaurants. The empire that none of them had noticed building because they were too busy judging its humble beginnings. "I saw your truck at the business district last week," Amanda continued. "Standing there in the cold, serving food to office workers. Is that really what you want to do with your life?" I had been at the truck that day, not because I had to be, but because I still worked it once a month. It kept me grounded, connected to where I started. The fact that none of them recognized me in my food truck uniform, quietly serving corporate warriors and construction workers alike, said everything about how they saw service workers. "You know," Grandma interrupted, her voice carrying that subtle authority that came from old money. "Your grandfather started in manufacturing, actually worked the factory floor." "That was different," Uncle Philip protested. "Those were different times." "Were they?" I asked quietly. "Or do we just pretend they were to justify looking down on certain kinds of work?" Amanda rolled her eyes. "Oh, spare us the working-class hero speech. You're not some inspirational story, Olivia. You're a cautionary tale. I mean, seriously, a food truck? How embarrassing." The word hung in the air like a challenge. Around the table, I saw the familiar looks. Pity, disappointment, condescension. They'd been the same looks I'd gotten 3 years ago when I'd parked my first truck on the corner of 47th and Madison. Slowly, deliberately, I reached for my bag. "You're right, Amanda," I said, pulling out the latest issue of Forbes. "It is pretty embarrassing." Finally, she sees reason. Amanda sat back, triumphant. "Yeah," I continued, sliding the magazine onto the table. "Being called the fastest-growing restaurant chain in North America is pretty embarrassing. Almost as embarrassing as this cover photo." The silence that fell over the table was absolute. On the magazine cover, I stood in my chef's whites, arms crossed, with the headline, "The Food Truck Revolution. How Olivia Anderson Built a Billion-Dollar Empire One Meal at a Time." Grandma's fork clattered to her plate. The silence at my grandmother's antique dining table stretched like pulled caramel, sweet, tense, and ready to snap. Amanda's face had gone through several shades of red before settling on a sickly pale. Uncle Philip's hands trembled as he reached for the magazine. This is impossible," he stammered, flipping pages frantically. "Billion-dollar empire?" $3 billion, actually," I corrected gently. "The magazine went to print before the Tokyo acquisition closed this morning." Bradley choked on his wine. "Tokyo." "Mum." I took another bite of roast beef. 43 high-end fusion restaurants across Japan. They approached us after our success in Singapore last year. "Us." Amanda's voice was barely a whisper. "Who is us?" "East meets West Restaurant Group. Though we maintain different brand names for different market segments. The food trucks, there are 50 of them now across major cities, still carry the original branding. The fine dining establishments use more elevated names. Love Fusion, Grandma said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at her. She smiled. That new place on Fifth Avenue that's impossible to get into. That's yours, isn't it? I nodded. Along with Golden Bridge in San Francisco, Sky Fusion in Chicago, and about 300 other locations worldwide. Uncle Philip was still staring at the magazine. But how? When? Remember when I said I was getting by with the food truck? I pulled out my phone, opened my portfolio app. The first truck grossed $800,000 in its first year. By year 2, we had 5 trucks and our first small restaurant. The concept proved so popular, we had investors begging to get in on series of funding. Series A. Bradley leaned forward. Like startup funding? We've gone through Series F now, I said casually, though I maintained controlling interest. Never let investors dictate your vision. Amanda found her voice. But you work the truck. I've seen you. Standing there in that uniform. I work every location at least once. It's company policy. Everyone from the CEO down has to regularly experience the front lines. Keeps us connected to our customers and staff. I smiled. Those days you saw me? I was probably making 7 or 8 figures in other deals between serving orders. The trust fund, Amanda said suddenly. Your portion. What did you? Is still untouched. I cut in. Every penny of this was built from that first food truck. Though speaking of the trust, I pulled another document from my bag. Grandma, I'd like to discuss something with you after dinner. Grandma's eyes twinkled. She'd always been sharper than anyone gave her credit for. Would this have anything to do with Anderson Capital's recent difficulties? Uncle Philip's head snapped up. How did you know that your firm is on the verge of bankruptcy? I finished for him. Because I've been buying your debt through shell companies for the past year. Waiting for the right moment. The color drained from his face. You? What? Remember last March when you loudly told everyone at Easter brunch that my little food experiment would never amount to anything? That was the same day I purchased the majority of your corporate bonds at a discount. Interesting timing, wouldn't you say? Amanda stood up so quickly her chair toppled backward. This is a trick. Some kind of elaborate joke. You serve tacos from a truck. Actually, I said, pulling up a photo on my phone. Today's truck special was Kobe beef sliders with wasabi aioli and pickled daikon. We sold out by noon, just like we do every day, at every location. I turned to Grandma. Which reminds me, how would you feel about us opening a location here? The old Anderson factory building is empty, and I think the symmetry would be appropriate. The factory isn't for sale, Uncle Philip snapped. Actually, Grandma said softly, I believe it is. And I think it's a wonderful idea, Olivia. You can't be serious. Amanda's voice rose to a shriek. She abandoned the family business, chose to become a food vendor. No, I corrected, standing slowly. I chose to build my own business, and now I'm offering to help save yours. I turned to Uncle Philip. Anderson Capital needs a capital injection of roughly $300 million to avoid bankruptcy. I'm prepared to offer that in exchange for a controlling interest and a complete reorganization of the management structure. He slumped in his chair. How do you know the exact amount? Because I've had a team analyzing your books for months. Did you really think that new junior analyst, the quiet one you never bothered to speak to, was just another employee? She reports directly to me. Bradley whistled low. Damn, cuz, that's cold. No, I said firmly. Cold is mocking someone's dreams. Cold is assuming that success only looks one way. Cold is treating service workers like they're beneath you while they're building empires you never noticed. I reached into my bag one final time, withdrew a stack of contracts. So here's how this will work. Anderson Capital becomes a subsidiary of East Meets West Restaurant Group. Uncle Philip, you'll be offered a position on our board, non-executive, of course. Amanda, that corner office of yours. The building was part of a real estate package I acquired last month. Expect some changes to the lease terms. You can't do this, Amanda whispered. Actually, I can. And I am. I turned to Grandma. With your blessing, of course, as the family matriarch. Grandma looked around the table, at Uncle Philip's defeated slump, Amanda's shocked fury, Bradley's growing admiration, and then back to me. Her eyes were bright with something that looked like pride. You know, she said, your grandfather didn't just work the factory floor. He also drove the delivery truck himself, every Saturday, even after he bought the company. She lifted her wine glass. To new beginnings, built on honest work. I raised my glass in return, but Amanda wasn't finished. This isn't over, she hissed. You might have your fancy restaurants and your corporate takeovers, but you're still the girl who built a billion-dollar empire while you were busy looking down your nose at a food truck. I suggested. Who now owns the building where you work, the loans your firm took out, and the future of the family business? I smiled. You're right. It's not over. In fact, it's just beginning. I checked my phone one last time. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to take this call. The London expansion won't negotiate itself. I stood straightening my simple dress. Oh, and Amanda? That food truck you saw me working last week? We made $3,000 in 2 hours. Pretty embarrassing, right? 1 month after the Christmas dinner revelation, I sat in what used to be Uncle Philip's office on the top floor of Anderson Capital. The mahogany desk remained, but the wall of vintage photos showing 3 generations of Anderson men had been replaced with a single image. My first food truck, parked on a busy street corner, with a line of customers stretching around the block. A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. Come in. Amanda entered, looking uncomfortable in business casual rather than her usual designer suits. The new dress code had been just one of many changes. The quarterly reports you asked for, she said stiffly, placing a folder on my desk, and the staff feedback surveys about the new corporate lunch program. Ah, yes, my favorite innovation. Every Anderson Capital employee now got free lunch from one of our food trucks, which rotated through the corporate plaza daily. It was good for morale and even better for reminding certain executives where real success could start. Thank you, I said, opening the folder. How are you adjusting to the new position? Her jaw tightened. As part of the reorganization, I'd moved her from senior partner to head of community outreach, a role that required her to actually interact with the people she'd spent years looking down on. It's educational, she managed. Good, because I need you to handle something special. I pulled up a calendar on my tablet. Next week is the grand opening of our new flagship location. The factory conversion? She frowned. I thought that was months away. I smiled. When you have 300 restaurants worldwide, you learn how to move quickly. The old Anderson factory will reopen next Thursday as Heritage Hall, a combination high-end restaurant, culinary school, and community space. And what do you need from me? You'll be managing our scholarship program, full-ride culinary training for promising students from underprivileged backgrounds. The same people you used to walk past without seeing when they were working in food service. Her face flushed. Is this punishment? For how we treated you? No, Amanda. It's opportunity. The same kind I had. The chance to build something meaningful, regardless of where you start. I stood, walking to the window. Did you know that 70% of our restaurant managers started as line cooks or servers? That our Tokyo expansion is being led by a woman who began as a dishwasher? I didn't know that. Of course not. Because you, like most people born to privilege, never looked past the surface. Never saw the potential in a food truck, or a service worker, or any success that didn't match your predetermined vision. Bradley's voice came from the doorway. But you saw it all along, didn't you? I turned to find my cousin leaning against the frame, looking surprisingly comfortable in the chef's whites he now wore as part of our management training program. Someone had to, I said. After the Christmas revelation, Bradley had been the first to approach me about learning the business from the ground up. He'd spent the past month working in our kitchens, learning every aspect of operations. The calluses on his hands had replaced his Rolex as his new badge of honor. The first truck arrives in 10 minutes, he said. Ready for the lunch rush? Amanda looked confused. You're not actually going to work the truck? Of course I am. I removed my blazer, revealing the familiar East meets West uniform underneath. Every executive works a shift at least once a week, including you, starting today. Me. Her voice rose an octave. But I'm not. I don't know how to. You'll learn. Bradley grinned. Like I did. Nothing teaches humility like getting slammed during lunch rush. As if on cue, Uncle Philip appeared, already in his uniform. The former banking titan had surprised everyone by embracing his new role in operations management with unexpected enthusiasm. Today's special is selling out at every location, he reported. The fusion faux burger concept is a hit. Good. I handed Amanda her uniform, because we're about to serve it to 300 hungry finance workers who used to be your colleagues. She stared at the clothes like they might bite. I can't. Yes, you can. And you will. I checked my phone. Grandma's coming to observe, by the way. She's considering investing in our next expansion round. That got her attention. Grandma? Working a food truck? Not working, though, she offered. She wants to see the magic happen. I smiled. She said it reminds her of when Grandpa used to let her ride along in the delivery truck, back when the Anderson name meant something more than just status. Amanda looked at the uniform again, then at me. Is this really what you want? To have us all serving street food? No, I said quietly. What I want is for you to understand that every job has dignity. Every worker has potential. Every success story has a beginning. I gestured to the photo of my first truck. That wasn't embarrassing. It was foundational. The sound of voices rose from the plaza below, the lunch crowd gathering, drawn by the now familiar sight of our trucks. Time to work, Bradley announced. Coming, sis. Amanda hesitated for one more moment, then took the uniform. I still think you're crazy, she said, but there was less bite in her voice than before. Crazy enough to build an empire from a food truck, I reminded her. Crazy enough to save the family business. Crazy enough to believe that sometimes the best revenge isn't serving it cold, it's serving it with a side of humble pie. As we headed down to the plaza, I thought about that first day with my truck, the doubt and determination that had driven me. The empire had grown beyond my wildest dreams, but the core remained the same. Good food, honest work, and the quiet satisfaction of proving everyone wrong. Hey, Olivia, Amanda called as we reached the plaza. That wasabi aioli sauce. Will you teach me how to make it? I smiled. Maybe there was hope for her yet. First rule of the kitchen, sis. You have to earn your recipes. Now let's show you how to work the grill.